Yo, welcome rivals to the settings guide that will leave no question open, so let's jump right in. We are going to be going over all of the settings, but we will start with the sensitivity ones. Because last week we did release a video on how to get headshots consistently and how to practice and aim train for that. And now hopefully you do have your base data, and this data we will use now to improve your mouse sensitivity, and we're also going to do the crosshair, and then afterwards we're going to go over all the other settings, because those two settings are by far the most important. The movement speed of your mouse in-game is determined by two factors. It is DPI and the sensitivity settings that you can see right here. And it's actually an easy multiplication. So let's say you would have a mouse that is running 1000 DPI. This will be the factor, so you would actually be running 4K DPI. If you are looking at what DPI settings overall most pros use, they usually tend to have lower DPI settings, with sensitivity rating maybe getting into a max of like 1.8K to 2K. But in Marvel Rivals, some heroes require a way higher sensitivity, like for example Black Panther, where you have to 180 turn the whole time. For all characters, like the 180 turn is a sweet spot. So for me personally, when I set my sensitivity settings, I want to go and check in the practice area if I do like one wrist flick, like one small wrist flick, if this is a 180 turn. And I will start going to that sensitivity first. Then the next thing I'm checking is if I am able to track a bot properly. If this is the case, your sensitivity, I would say, is already decent. If it is not, and you're like overcorrecting or undercorrecting, I would increase or decrease the sensitivity until you can track like the head of a bot pretty properly. Also, I would do it on like different distances, so you can check if there's a mismatch of the accuracy between being close by and being far away. Now you have probably noticed that my sensitivity here is having a mismatch, and this I implemented due to the fact that the speed of position change of the enemies, if they are jumping compared to if they're walking sideways, is different, and this will even it out and make it feel like a smooth motion, I would say, like when you adjust to like left-right movement or up and downwards movement. And for me personally, it makes it a lot easier. Sorry to interrupt, but short self-promotion is needed. Currently, 91.2% of the people watching the videos are not subscribed to the channel. So let's make a deal. If you learn something new in this video, you have to subscribe. So now that you have found the perfect sensitivity setting for yourself, you should go into the crosshair settings. I would say the default crosshair is not usable at all. Of course, there's different preferences on crosshair. You can do crosshair specifically for every hero to maybe show like the spread of the shotgun or whatever. I personally think that if you're not like a one-trick pony on one character, you should definitely go with one default crosshair that you use all over the place. As similar to muscle memory, you also have that visual memory. Having to readapt to crosshairs can slow down your learning progress. I personally use a green crosshair because that contrast is by far the highest currently. If you have a green-red visual disorder, I would recommend using pink. You can download this crosshair that I have right below the video. I personally am a big fan of having a little open space in the middle of the crosshair. So as soon as I see a color shift of the environment towards an enemy, especially on hit scan heroes, I can just press and hit right away. So now that we have the best sensitivity and crosshair that we could choose, we should try to increase our FPS next. So in the display here for the display mode, the highest FPS is actually on full screen, but the difference is not as big, and for me it's a bit more convenient to play with a borderless window. For anti-aliasing, choose whatever your card has. Now I'm running NVIDIA, so I'm choosing NVIDIA, of course, otherwise it wouldn't also work, but you should definitely have it on. If you want your game to look pretty good, I would choose quality. If you want to have good FPS while still having like something that is like somewhat readable, I would go into performance and increase the super resolution sharpening to 100. This is a bit softer on your PC. For the NVIDIA DLS frame generation, I would turn that off, like those AI generated frames. I don't know, that does not feel good. It sometimes feels clingy, especially when you're playing like a heavy headshot character. It feels like you're hitting less. For the low latency one, that one works pretty well. I would adjust that. So what you're aiming here for your FPS is having at least as much FPS as your refresh rate of your monitor. And you can always check that if you press show FPS and network stats to make sure that you can see your ping. And then you can see your FPS on the top right corner right here. For the graphic settings, the most, I would say, system consuming things that provide no actual in-game value is the illumination, which can be turned down all the way to SSGI, and with shadow detail too low, you should already be set here, and you can still see the shadows, I would say, properly enough to see someone like peeking behind the corner. Now let's come to the audio, which is extremely important actually in that game. And I would focus on sounds that actually give you information rather than that make the game like sound nice or whatever. So I would have the sound effects volume and the in-game voice volume all the way up. If you think the music is hindering, you can also turn it off. It serves no purpose. But the sound effects will definitely help you navigate around, and the announcements from the in-game voice lines and ultimate activation and so on, it's extremely important to hear that, because on some ults to counter them, you will actually do it on hearing and not on seeing, because you can hear faster than you can see. Say I play Punisher and I can hear an enemy's Jeff ult, I will just press my E, go into my turret to make sure that I will not get eaten. Then one thing that surprised me when I was testing, that this 3D enhancement, which should actually help you to locate audio and where like enemies are going, like footsteps and stuff like this, it's actually making it worse. I don't know why, but for me it's better if it's turned off. And then we have one more setting that I want to talk about down here, the voiceover subtitles. If you turn that on, you basically see what is going on. I think this is maybe for people that have like an audio impairment, because I think this information is a bit overwhelming, and if you can get an information via listening, you should not try to do it a second time via visual and try to keep your sensors separate. So I would definitely keep that turned off. So when we are in the combat mix, there's also a bunch of sounds that help you to navigate around. Especially interesting is the damage volume. When you're playing heroes that do tracking or something like this, can help you actually stay on track, because you get like into like a rhythm, I would call it. Yeah, other than that, make sure that you can separate the different sounds. If you have trouble separating them by this, then it could help to just get like a slight mismatch into them, so you know that, okay, the louder sound is this and the smaller one is this. Then two things you should definitely turn on is the announce when the teammate is KO'd or the enemy is KO'd, because this will help you to decide if you are pushing or if you have to retreat. And like, let's say you have no ultimates up, two of your mates just got picked off. So what are you going to do? Well, you have to retreat, regroup, and position, and don't waste time by like feeding into it, trying to go for a 4v6 situation with no ultimates that has no chance. So now when we are coming to the keyboard settings under combat, in the abilities tab here, you will have the hotkeys for your team up abilities. And I would highly recommend to switch those, because the defaults with C, for example, it is really far off from your WASD. And if you put it on C, like you have it close by, you have less travel time. I saw people even like lifting up their hand while they are playing, which of course is like a death sentence. Under the keyboard communication tab, there's also some things which I would say call like basic communication that you should have ready. Also maybe on a hotkey. And for me, this is retreat, which I put on B to signal if people are over pushing, which is probably the most I would say like common command that I'm trying to give my team to guide it at least a little bit. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't, but I think it's a good habit to at least try to communicate. And similar goes for me, they need healing, which I put on G. We all know the healers that only look up front, ne? Also no front to them. But this way you can guide them, guide their attention. Ne? Some people are get a bit cocky if you press it. If you are not helping your healer to locate you, you should not be expecting heals. Then for the social settings, I would actually recommend turning off the chat completely. This does not mean that you cannot just chat and give like maybe like an idea that you have into it, but I would prevent any form of toxicity at all in the game. I would not interact with people currently because it is too toxic in my opinion. The engagement-based matchmaking that they have implemented will put toxic behaving people into toxic games. Yeah, so they are not interfering with the engagement of people that want to play a normal game. So if you behave toxic, you will get into those pools with more and more toxic people, and I am pretty sure that that in the long run will affect your win rate. Another thing you should have checked is the hide own name for the competitive mode, so people cannot target ban you. Of course, there's a bunch of people that use trackers and still target ban you, but for like the most part, you are pretty safe if you have that function on, especially if you're a one-trick pony and you don't have like a diverse hero pool. So this was my short settings guide, how I am running it currently. If you still have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below and I will try to answer everything in less than 24 hours, like always. So cheers and see you in the next one.